Hello and welcome to California Up Now. My name is Claudia Eisman and I have a guest here with me today, and his name is Gerard Koskovich, and he is the founding member of the GLBT Historical Society and also a history maven. A gay history maven.
Queer history maven.
A queer history maven. That's what it is. So thanks for coming in on this rainy day.
My pleasure.
How lucky are we to have this wonderful museum in the Castro district? It's a great place. Let's start off with the title, GLBT. Explain that.
Absolutely. The GLBT Historical Society, which is the parent organization that runs the museum, was founded in 1985. And at the time, it was called the Gay and Lesbian Historical Society. That was the commonest usage. In 1999, it changed its name to Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender, because that was the commonest usage then.
Right.
And at that point, we said, for now, we're going to just stick with that historic name. And it actually causes people to raise the question, why aren't you LGBT or LGBTQ? And we can talk a bit about the fact that both the language for our communities, but also the ways that we identify ourselves and think about ourselves are in evolution and have been over the course of a couple hundred years or more. So there is no final name we can give the museum that will be the one that will stick for the next 200 years. If we change the name now, in 10 years, people will say, why aren't you the latest name for 10 years from now? So it allows us to raise this idea that there's a history even in what we call ourselves, and that what we call ourselves reflects a history of change in how we think about ourselves, our social roles, and how we live our lives.
Great. One question I have, where is the museum located? And you have an archival space and you have the museum.
Yes, the museum is located in the Castro district in San Francisco at 4127 18th Street, just off of Castro Street. I should perhaps point out that it's one of 3 standalone LGBT history museums in the world.
In the world.
The other 2 are in Berlin and in Sao Paulo. So there are 3 museums that are devoted entirely to LGBTQ history. We're one of them. And
you've been around for 30 years.
Our archives was founded in 1985, and the museum opened its doors in 2011. And so our separate archival center where people come to do research is located at 989 Market Street, just near 6th Street. So we have 2 different locations. One, the museum for exhibitions, programs, receptions. One, our large archival collection. We have 800 different archives of individuals, organizations, businesses, and so on. We have 90,000 photographs.
Wow, that's impressive.
5,000 periodical titles. It's one of the world's largest collections of LGBTQ historical material. There we have about 300 to 400 researchers a year coming to use the materials for their books, their films, their dissertations, their school projects, a wide curators from other institutions.
And I understand you also have a space for writers there who want to write books. Is that correct?
We have our reading room where people can come and do research and can carry out their research projects, exactly. So we welcome a lot of authors who come to use our collection.
And is the GLBT Museum a destination place for visitors to California?
Absolutely. The archives are mainly for researchers, so that's a relatively small number of people. The museum, with exhibitions and public programs, is truly a cultural destination. We're lucky to be in San Francisco, which is one of the world's great tourist cities.
It is.
And so what we found in opening the museum, we initially thought, well, we'll open a museum, mainly will attract LGBTQ people, and mainly from Northern California.
Right.
Much to our surprise, we found that approximately 50% of our visitors are non-LGBTQ.
Interesting.
And depending on the time of year, 60 to 70% of our visitors are tourists from outside of Northern California. So in fact, we found that we can speak to a much more diverse and a much broader audience and bring our message to a great range of people, in part thanks to being in San Francisco. I think many tourists who come to this city come thinking San Francisco is a city of great diversity. We want to see the museums that we won't see back home.
Right, exactly.
Well, if you're not from Berlin or Sao Paulo, the Museum of GLBT History is something you won't see back home. Those are the only other 2 places you'll be able to see one. So we're a real destination.
All right, that's great. We're going to take a break and we will be right back. Stay with us on California Up Now.
Book your wedding day with us. Salon DNA, 415-956-1909.
Hello and welcome back to California Up Now. I'm Claudia Eisman and I'm discussing the GLBT Museum in San Francisco with one of the founding members, Gerard Koskovich. Thanks again for being with us today.
Absolutely.
And I'm visiting the museum for the first time. I walk in, what can I expect?
The museum is not enormous. We have a layout that is divided basically into three galleries. We have a front gallery that has changing exhibitions, a community gallery that has changing exhibitions. Those are basically two long walls. And then a main gallery, which is a large room that has a long-term exhibition looking at approximately 15 different aspects of San Francisco's LGBTQ history.
Wow, that's extensive.
And it ranges from things that few people will have heard of, so real discoveries, to things that are relatively familiar to many people. So for example, there's a display about Jiro Onuma, who was a Japanese immigrant gay man who came to San Francisco in 1920 at the age of 19, a working class man who lived his life here in San Francisco. What's particularly amazing there is to even have documentation of a gay person from that time period, from that community. And among the things on display are a photograph of Jiro when he was sent to the internment camps during World War II. The two photos in our collection of Jiro and his friends are the only documented photographs of gay people in the internment camps where Japanese immigrants and were sent during World War II. So it's truly a treasure. And then on the other end, things that people will recognize, we have a display that's very touching and very moving about Harvey Milk and about the death of Harvey Milk. And on display, among other things, is the suit that Harvey was wearing when he was assassinated. And it is truly heartbreaking and deeply moving to see this object and see the real violence that was done to a real person, not a legend. It makes it very, very concrete.
Kind of emotional in some ways.
Very emotional. It's displayed in a very sober way. You actually have to click a button to have the display case slowly light up. We want people to really make the choice to see this object because it's so emotional to view it.
Right. And you have some things coming up this month, one of which I thought was particularly interesting about Tennessee Williams. Talk a little bit about your schedule of events.
Yes, so besides exhibitions, we put on a regular series of programming. We usually have in the range of 4 to 6 programs every month. One of them is a monthly program that's usually the first Monday in cooperation with Theater Rhinoceros, the great long-running queer theater troupe in San Francisco, and it's doing a series of staged readings of plays that have a relationship to LGBTQ history. The one coming up on Monday, January 9th, is a play about the playwright Tennessee Williams and his partner. So it's a play about a playwright.
I definitely want to see that.
We have other events coming up. Notably, we have a new exhibition opening on the 27th of January. That's about the bear community. So bears are gay men who are larger, hairier, a bit older, and it's a community that emerged in the 1980s to say everybody doesn't have to look like a smooth white gym bunny, that there are a variety of masculinities and attractivenesses, that body types that could be regarded as appealing, and these men emerged to say, hey, we're good looking and hot too, and created a kind of subculture around this.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a show looking at the emergence of that community.
And you're a curator of one of the exhibits.
Another exhibition we have up right now is it's the first one we've done that's really international. It's about Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld, who died in 1935 in exile from the Nazis. He was a pioneering gay rights advocate, a transgender rights advocate, and sexologist in Germany and beyond in the beginning of the 20th century. Co-founded the first homosexual emancipation organization in 1897 in Berlin. He visited San Francisco in 1931, so we put on the show to mark the 85th anniversary. And it includes original documents from the first half of the 20th century of the emergence of a defense of lesbian, gay, and transgender people. A lot of really remarkable things to see in that show. It runs through January 13th.
Great. And tell us about some of the visitors. Why is it important for young people to visit this museum? Do you have young gay people visiting? And why do you want them to see all this history?
I think the key thing is that the mission of our organization, of which the museum is just one of the initiatives, we're a social justice organization. We're about looking at the history of LGBTQ people, learning about it in detail, studying it with a critical eye, and then learning from that history, taking information, inspiration, lessons. People don't really have a future if they don't have a past. And so
very good point.
this is a way of placing ourselves in the flow of time, of returning our stories to the broader story of American history and world history, and showing that we belong there. So welcoming young people or LGBTQ older adults. For young people, it's a way of giving them a heritage and saying, you belong in a longer flow of time. You have a family, you have ancestors who lived lives similar to yours and helped create the world you live in today. For older adults, it's a way of saying your lifetime of struggle to be who you are, to find love, to hold down a job, to face a society that was often hostile. That deserves to be remembered and honored, and we're going to do it in the setting of a museum. That's how important your everyday life and your everyday struggles have been. It also is a way of giving this history back to society in general. We didn't live this history on another planet. We had non-LGBT parents and friends and bosses and neighbors, some of them allies, some of them persecuting us. But it's a history that belongs to everyone, so it isn't just missing for LGBTQ people, it's missing for everyone, and we hope to restore it to everybody who's interested in that history. You can see that in our visitors. Approximately half of the visitors to the museum are non-LGBTQ people who are there to learn about this history, who recognize that queer folks are part of our society and they want to understand where we came from.
And why is that important in this political climate right now?
Well, we're certainly facing a very challenging political moment where there's been a resurgence of anti-LGBTQ politics in this country, and a resurgence of racist politics and of misogynist politics and so on. We're very intersectional. As a museum, we feel that this history has an important story to tell about the struggles that our ancestors have carried out, about the ways they've managed to survive, remembering those who didn't survive persecution, and that we can really take strength in that history to carry on the struggle now.
Okay. And tell us how people can help. If they want to donate to the museum, or maybe they have a piece of history that they would like to donate, or how can people help?
Absolutely. Our amazing collections are entirely a result of donations. We don't have an acquisitions budget. So people who have any material relating to LGBTQ history in Northern California, we're interested in hearing about it. If you look at our website, you can find out how to contact our archivist and should be thrilled to learn more. And of course, we also need support from people in terms of volunteers if you're here in the area, and donations of cash, sponsorships, funding, become a member. All of those things make it possible for us to move forward, particularly with our new Vision 2020 project, where we look to build a full-scale museum that we own with everything, the archives, museum, exhibitions, public programs, in one large, marvelous new museum, and we're hoping to move forward with that project in the next 5 years.
Okay, Gerard, in conclusion now, tell us your website.
The website is glbthistory.org. On Facebook, you can find us at GLBT History. You can also find us on Twitter, on YouTube. If you go to the website, you'll find all of those links.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you for watching California Up Now. We'll see you next week. Bye now.
Hello everyone, I'm Colin Stacktrust and welcome to Uncensored Pillow Talk. We want to let you know about this event that's coming up. If you like dance, you will love this. It's called Satin and Swing by choreographer Adriana Thompson. She was actually in our studio and has a message for you.
Hi, my name is Adriana Thompson. I'm the Artistic Director of Soul Skin Dance, inviting you to our forthcoming season at Dance Mission. The performance is called Satin and Swing, March 10th, 11th, and 12th at 8 o'clock, and I hope to see you then.
Be sure to check it out, guys. Here next to me, we are joined by a very special guest, Amy Sueyoshi, Associate Dean of the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University and curator of the LGBT History Museum. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
First off, it sounds like I want to explore some of the projects that you're working on, because it sounds like you've got a lot going on. So tell us a little bit about the Dragon Fruit Project.
Sure. So the Dragon Fruit Project is an intergenerational API queer oral history project. It's run through a nonprofit called API Equality Northern California, which is an LGBT advocacy organization here in San Francisco, Chinatown. And it's really kind of based on this idea that our elders are getting older. We really want to record their history, right? And there's this resurgence of all these young people who are really interested in hearing about older queers and their activism, right?
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. I'm moved by it. I think
Yeah.
sometimes Asian American queers, when they come out, they think they're the first Asian American queer ever, and that's not the case. So it's pretty amazing for them to be interested in recording these histories. It also keeps the elders kind of in touch, you know, having conversations with young people and
Wow.
engaged in society. So
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think hearing the stories from our ancestors is incredible. And I think about that specifically with our LGBT brothers and sisters, the ones that we lost to the AIDS epidemic.
Absolutely.
We lost so many stories
Yeah.
through that. So that's an amazing project.
yeah,
Good for you.
And I think sometimes older queers don't seem very sexy, and so it's really important for us who are younger to kind of keep them engaged and involved in the community.
Yeah. Wow, cool. Well, we're going to take a short break, so stay with us. We've got plenty more questions for Amy coming right up. Welcome back to Uncensored Pillow Talk. We're joined today by my guest, Amy Sueyoshi. Amy, you have written several books and articles, and we are curious about your first book, Queer Compulsions, Race, Nation, and Sexuality in the Affairs of Yone Noguchi. Can you tell us a little bit about this work?
Sure. So Yone Noguchi was an immigrant from Japan. He came to the U.S. in the 1890s. He wanted to become an English language poet. He's better known today as the father of artist Isamu Noguchi. So you know those paper lanterns that you can buy at COS?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the Isamu Noguchi table, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's actually his father.
Wow.
So he came to San Francisco in the 1890s, and he had an affair with this rice queen named Charles Warren Stoddard. And Charles Warren Stoddard is also known as the first gay author of San Francisco. He's also the founder of the very elite Bohemian Club in San Francisco.
Wow.
And so while he was having an affair with writing love letters to Charles, he impregnated Leonie Gilmore, which is why, you know, Isamu was born, and then also got engaged to Ethel Arms, who's considered the first historian of Alabama. And my book also argues that Ethel Arms was in fact a lesbian. She told Yone that she would marry him if it was only for a year, because she preferred to be with women than men.
Oh.
But it's an incredible story of race, nation, and sexuality. It was a time when marriages between Asian and whites were forbidden by law. And also same-sex sexuality was, of course, considered, not good, morally good, right? So for all these reasons, they somehow were able to still forge love and affection, and it's a story of how they were able to do it under these confines.
Wow, this is incredible, and it really covers a lot of ground in terms of things that are so relevant today. Sexuality, sexism, race, homophobia.
Yeah, interracial relationships. Yeah, and there's a lot of Orientalism in there too, like this fetishization of Japan and Japanese culture. That's why Charles is so drawn to Yone. Right, he sees him as made out of ivory, like an ivory doll, and all these other things. So
Oh my
it's
gosh.
pretty good story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, so you just had a show, correct, at the GLBT History Museum.
Yes, that's correct.
Tell us a little bit
And it
about
closed
that.
already, but it was a show that I really enjoyed. It was called Feministas, and it was a woman of color poster exhibit on activism by what these women called themselves third world lesbians at the time. And it kind of talks about how lesbians at first they're active throughout the 3 or 4 decades, but at first they sort of reject all these kinds of patriarchal things, right? So they don't want to look beautiful. They just wear sweats. They don't really care about how they look. But by the 90s, queer women of color have adopted a gay male aesthetic. So they want to look really good, have like really neat haircuts, right? So that's why it's feminist to feminista, because feminista is a word derived from fashionista.
Right.
And it's a word that comes out of sort of women of color communities.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow. As you're talking, I'm thinking about this being an opportune moment for me to own both my maleness and whiteness, and ask you to speak to how can people, we just had the Women's March, we've had some really important movements happening recently. How can people be allies to women, and particularly women of color?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you have money, right, it's always good to donate to organizations and causes, right? It's important to step back and not take up too much space, right? But also to support sort of women and queer women of color in terms of their political endeavors, their artistic endeavors, right? Show up for things if they're doing something, right? But then again, don't take over, right? Donate money, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and showing up for things reminds me of this project that you have that's going on, the Dragon Fruit Project. I know that a lot of people would want to be involved in that, and how would they do that?
Sure. So if you're interested in interviewing API queers, right, I would definitely go to API Equality Northern California. They have a website, and you can contact the organization. The GLB Historical Society is having a general kind of, they're reviving their general oral history project. So if you just want to interview any old queer, right, you can go
Any
there.
old queer.
Yeah, any old queer. Yeah. You can go there and sign up and send an email as well to the organization and tell them you're interested in being a volunteer. They like transcribers as well. So if you're a little shy and you don't like talking to strangers so much, or if you have a problem where you talk too much and you're not a very good listener, you might be a better transcriber. Yeah.
Excellent. This is so cool. And
Sure.
tell us just really briefly stuff to look forward to that's coming up at the museum that we can check out.
So right now there's a bear exhibit, a bear tunist. It has an exhibit there. And then there's also another exhibit called Noche Ambiente. It's about Latino queers. We have a number of other exhibits that are coming up. We have Lenore Chin, who's a photographer, is going to be putting up her photography about LGBT families. And then we have some long time, like more permanent kind of exhibits, like Harvey Milk's suit that he was assassinated in is at the museum.
Wow.
We also have some materials by an adult Japanese American who was incarcerated in the camps right in the 1940s as well.
Wow.
So a lot of interesting things. We also have
That's really powerful.
Yeah, an exhibit on DOB, Daughters of Bilitis, which is the first lesbian sort of civil rights kind of organization.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So much cool stuff to check out. I'm so glad you joined us today. If you have any questions for Amy or for me, please don't hesitate to email us at upt@newsupnow.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and please check us out next time on Uncensored Pillow Talk.